It's green. Jim? Proof? All right, good afternoon. The board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now being called to order. Today's in-person meeting is being held virtually via teleconference with the proceedings live streamed from the Port Authority website. On June 7th, the Audit Committee and the Committee on Finance met in executive session. Earlier today, the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public and executive sessions. The reports will be filed with the official minutes of today's board meeting. The commissioners also met in executive session today to discuss matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real property where disclosure would affect the value thereof. Yes? We're good. Okay. All right, so I'm sorry. We're now going to hold the public meetings starting with the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, Asset Management, which will be chaired by the Vice Chair Linford, and we'll conclude with today's public meeting, the board meeting. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today's meeting, the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is being held in public session. The committee also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters involving ongoing negotiations, reviews, contract, or proposal. At this point, I ask the Secretary to advise those present of the composition of the committee and any commissioner recusals on the items before the committee.
Good afternoon. The Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management is composed of Vice Chairman Linford, the committee chair, Chairman O'Toole, the committee vice chair, and Commissioners Helmy, LaBarbera, and Rosado. All committee members present today. In addition to the committee members, Commissioners Bolwage, Cohen, Eve, Kelly, McCabe, and Richardson are also present. There are no recusals required.
Thank you. I will now call on our Director of Aviation Redevelopment, Jacqueline McCarthy, to present an item that will authorize planning to enhance public transportation access to LaGuardia Airport.
Good afternoon, Commissioners, and thank you, Vice Chairman. I'm here today to discuss the LaGuardia Mass Transit Access Improvements Planning Authorization. As background, in March, the Port Authority released the Options for Mass Transit Solutions to LaGuardia report, which evaluated 14 different options for public transportation to LaGuardia Airport. The analysis began in late 2021 at the request of New York Governor Hochul and was carried out by a multidisciplinary team and overseen by a 3-member expert panel. Along with the release of the report, the panel recommended 2 bus options for LaGuardia, which would provide benefit to the public sooner and at a lower cost compared to the other options. We are here today to seek planning funds to advance and expedite the panel's recommendations. The panel members were comprised of Mike Brown, former Commissioner of Transport for London, former Managing Director for Heathrow Airport, Jeanette Sadiq Khan, former Commissioner of the New York City DOT, and Phil Washington, CEO of Denver International Airport and former CEO of Los Angeles Metro. The multidisciplinary team was comprised of the independent consultant listed on the right of the page. So the recommendations of the panel will be implemented as a 2-pronged approach. The first is for substantial improvements to the existing Q70 bus route, which connects the subway line directly to the airport. The second is a new nonstop shuttle connecting a different subway line, the NW, in Astoria to the airport terminals. The map on this page depicts LaGuardia Airport relative to its surrounding areas. You can see the existing Q70 bus route today with a number of improvements to make service faster and more reliable for patrons as outlined on the left. This slide shows the proposed new shuttle service from Astoria Ditmars Boulevard Station. It will connect the NW subway line and all 3 terminals, utilizing electric zero-emission buses. In conclusion, today we're requesting board action for approval of $30 million in planning funds to advance the panel's recommendation. Are there any questions?
Hearing no questions, I thank you. Do any commissioners have comments? Any further questions? May I please have a motion from a committee member who is not accused on the matter to move the item forward for consideration by the full board?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner. May I have a second?
I think that was LaBarbara.
It was.
No, thank you.
Any
It
objection?
was.
Thank you, Gary.
Hearing none.
Thank you.
Moses on the mountain. Hearing none, the motion is passed. This concludes today's meeting of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management. Mr. Chairman.
Right, thanks, Vice Chair. So let me go back to where I started. The board meeting of the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey and its component units is now being called to order. Today's in-person is being held via video conference. On June 7th, the Audit Committee and the Committee on Finance met in executive. Earlier today, the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management met in public and executive session. The reports will be filed within the official minutes of today's board meeting. The Commissioners also met in executive session earlier today to discuss matters related to the purchase, sale, or lease of real property where the disclosure would affect the value thereof or the public interest, and matters involving ongoing negotiations or reviews of contracts or proposals. At this time, we ask for our Executive Director to provide his monthly report. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As we reach the middle of the year, I want to briefly review for the commissioners some of the highlights of that the agency achieved throughout the first half of 2023. The agency opened the new Terminal A at Newark Liberty Airport to the public. We broke ground on the $4.2 billion Terminal 6 project at JFK, with foundation work now well underway. Also at JFK, the work on the new Terminal 1 has continued aggressively. It closed and began demolition of the Terminal 2, and as part of the project, steel erection has now begun. The agency opened the newly renovated North Walk of the George Washington Bridge. PATH launched 9-car service on the Newark to World Trade Center line. PATH also began the introduction into revenue service of the first of 72 new rail cars, which will be delivered in the course of this year and next year. The seaport has maintained its position as the second busiest port in the U.S. and maintained an average wait time of ships at anchorage of less than a day. The agency graduated the 120th Port Authority Police class, the most diverse class in PD history. The agency advanced multiple projects on our sustainability agenda, including the activation of the major solar installation at the new Newark Terminal A parking garage, which is the single largest solar rooftop project at any U.S. airport. These highlights are a testament to the efforts of our workforce and the dedication of the agency's employees. We continue to be grateful to them. They are the ones who are making this progress happen, and we are, as I say at each meeting, grateful to the leadership of the 23 unions who represent 2/3 of our workforce. Let me outline briefly the activity levels at the agency's facilities during the month of May. At our airports, record highs. Those airports handled approximately 366,000 more passengers overall than any month of May in the agency's history. Records were led by double-digit growth over 2019 by Newark Airport and LaGuardia Airport. At our tunnels and bridges, in May of this year, just concluded, the bridges and tunnels served approximately 80,000 more vehicles than May of 2019 pre-COVID, and for 4 out of 5 months, those vehicular volumes were above 2019 levels, and we expect that to continue. At PATH, passenger levels in May hit a new post-pandemic record or high of 63% of May 2019 volumes, obviously still down from what they were pre-pandemic, but growing. On weekdays, ridership was 59% of May 2019 ridership. On the weekends, the ridership hit 91% of 2019 volume. Finally, the Seaport continued its strong performance relative to the market. For the first 5 months, the port department was the second busiest port in the nation. And while the Seaport is down from its COVID peak, May 2023 volumes were still 5% above pre-pandemic May 2019 volume. In terms of forward progress on our agenda, Newark Terminal A, the complete opening. At Newark, an enormously significant milestone is right in front of us. The second phase of the Terminal A opening, which will complete its opening, the entire terminal, will take place on a phased basis in the 3 months beginning June, July, August. The airport will open its 12 remaining gates. It will open new lounge spaces and new concessions. All aspects of the opening are anticipated to be completed by the middle of September, bringing to life the full vision of the new Terminal A. At the World Trade Center, the Performing Arts Center, the rebuild of the World Trade Center site continues to move forward with the imminent completion of the Perlman Performing Arts Center. Last week, the Performing Arts Center announced its inaugural season programming and held an in-person preview of the interior facilities. The project is on the verge of reaching substantial construction completion in the next few weeks. And throughout the summer, final touches will be put in place with an anticipated ribbon cutting and the first performance occurring in September. This is a major step toward the completion of the World Trade Center campus and will be a dramatic contribution to Lower Manhattan. At JFK, two notable occurrences. One, the Port Authority this month awarded a contract to build and operate a construction support facility at JFK. While this may sound a little on the boring and mundane side, it is a huge plus for the community surrounding the airport. The facility will include a concrete batch plant, material crushing capability, and a marine barging transport facility. Because this facility will be on site at the airport and utilize waterway transportation, it will dramatically reduce the impact of airport construction on neighboring communities by eliminating the need for thousands of truck trips through local streets. The selected contractor will also further the agency's diversity and inclusion agenda through a strong commitment to minority and women-owned business participation with an emphasis on local businesses in awarding subcontracts. Second, at Terminal 6, the Port Authority and JFK Millennium Partners announced that the Public Art Fund, the leading independent nonprofit organization dedicated to public art, which was a key curator of art installations both at Newark Airport's Terminal A and LaGuardia Airport's Terminal B, will lead the art program for Terminal 6 JFK. The Art Fund will lead, the Public Art Fund will lead the public art process from curatorial strategy to implementation for a range of inspiring new art installations. These installations, these type of installations, have obviously become a signature part of the agency's airport redevelopments, and this announcement assures that this focus will continue at JFK Terminal 6. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Rick, one question. We've talked about, you and I had a conversation right after the senior staff on Tuesday, and when you step back and we see the projections, the volumes that we're seeing right now, and we use it as a benchmark 2019 for the most part, and it seems now, other than PATH, which is 60 during the week and maybe up to 91 on the weekends, and obviously some of the bus passengers are down, but as we look at the crossings, as we look at the airports, as we look at port, we look at the volume, it seems like we're now surpassing the 2019 levels in some of those fronts. If we aren't now, we certainly will be. When you look at the passengers, when you see 40% increase in Newark, you're seeing some of the projections that we're seeing overall. Business travel starting to come back, passenger travel's up, holiday travel's up, and it's in an extended fashion. It seems to me on a more global that the volume is now going to start to surpass 2019 across the board sooner or later. So as we had this conversation, it seems like we're getting back to where we were and perhaps even getting beyond where we were in 19. Is that how you feel about it in terms of the volumes?
Certainly at the airports and in terms of the tunnels and bridges. There's no question, Mr. Chairman. We're not only back, the region in terms of the volumes there is not only back, they're exactly what you just said, which is they're very substantially above 2019 levels, and all indications are that that will continue. Path remains at 60%. So there's a bit of a modal shift. Clearly, automobile traffic is back. The public transportation, public transit is still in the 60 percentile. So there is a bit of a modal shift. But in terms of the airports and the forecast for air travel is clearly going to increase from today's already record levels, and the trends seem to be roughly the same in terms of a continued increase at the bridges and tunnels.
Right, thanks. Any questions, comments for our executive director? Okay, if not, we're going to move ahead. We're now going to provide an opportunity for the members of the public to comment on the Port Authority matters. This public comment period, which may be limited to 30 minutes in total, provides an opportunity for members of the public to present their views directly to the board, but does not provide for a dialogue. Members of the public wishing to discuss a specific item with Port Authority staff are advised to contact our Public Affairs Department, and speakers are asked to comply with the fixed 3 minutes per speaker. We have 4 speakers who have signed up right now. The first one is Murray Bowden. Murray, come on up.
My name is Murray Bowden. A couple of things about myself. One, I wear a hat because I got cancer on my head, and so the doctor said you have to put stuff on it and wear a hat. I figured a yellow hat because I'm always in the wrong place. My shirts have very large buttons because my fingers don't work anymore, and I only have 3 shirts, but I alternate them and I wash them in between. So if you see me in the same shirt, it's because it's hard to find shirts with big buttons. My glasses are yellow. I used to be a skier, and when we skied, we always used goggles with yellow lenses because it gave you better contrast. Guess what? I got new glasses, but the following week I went in and got these with yellow lenses. I don't need true colors. I need contrast. World changed. Now, you've all been up here doing the same thing for a long time, and we need some. Oh, you see this microphone? It's below instead of up on top. This is the first time anybody at every meeting has done that, and they did it just before I started. And I went back there to check, and the sound level is just fine. But people can see my lips. And people like me who need to see lips to understand fully can do it. So you've got to change. That happened here. All of you have your name tags in front of you. This is the first place of any place where the name is on both sides. Everywhere else you go, they got to turn around to see who sits where. Right?
Yes.
This is the first place. There's something else I'm trying to remember. How do you tell people that you changed? Now, Kevin, first of all, everybody's got a first name. Let's use them. Stop saying Mr. Chairman. I know your name is Kevin. I know he's Jay. I know something. I can't remember the names. But until you start calling everybody by their first names to indicate that you've changed, nobody else is going to change. Not a tough one. My family was in the clothes cleaning business for 100 years. My son, who's 60, is the last of them. And as soon as he can sell the place, he's going to close. Because, yes, I know. I listen really well. He's going to close because the people don't wear the same clothes they did before. And how symbolically can you change? You can take your tie off, Kevin. Because until you take your tie off and indicate to everybody else that you have changed and they can change, you're perpetuating the old system. I've spoken to at least 10 people here about taking off the... I know, I hear you. I hear you. I'm not deaf. Until you take your tie off, so symbolically, everybody else can. If you watch television, everybody is casual clothes. It symbolizes the change. We are living in a different society. I have a whole list of things that have to change. But until a change of the thinking comes at the very top, a lot doesn't change. I'll give you a whole list of stuff I was going to talk about today. This needs change and that needs change and everything else. I got a wheelchair. Yeah. I can only walk about 2 blocks before I'm out of it. But I can still walk around. I go to the bathroom and leave the wheelchair outside. You can't change everything at once. You got to pick the one thing that starts everybody else changing. Now, you all have paper cups at your plates, so you can save plastic. And yet some of you still brought water out of here, water bottles. So I would appreciate it if I can't tell them to get rid of those water bottles, but you can. You got paper cups? Somebody was thinking. Pitcher of water, ban plastic water bottles in here. I can't do it, you can. So until you take your tie off, a lot is not going to change. That's a toughie. You
Thanks.
want to take your tie off?
I'm comfortable.
Hmm?
I honestly, having worn in a public setting like this.
Wait a minute. That's,
Hold on.
that's the whole thing.
Murray, I'm just telling you. So your time, thank you very much for your comments. I'm just. I
No,
know that-
I'm
I
not
know-
about to give up without fight. Look,
got
there
it.
was a railroad accident in Illinois. They had a hot box. It said, stop the train. They didn't stop the train.
Okay.
Nobody stood up. I know you're going to take me out of here and carry me out again. Not this time. They didn't stop that railroad train, and the rules said because they didn't change, and that went down. How many accidents because nobody stood up and said, you can't keep doing it that way? Well, I'm standing up and saying, you can't keep doing it that way.
Okay.
You want
Thank
to
you.
pull me out of here and carry me out again?
No.
On TV.
I got it, Murray. I got it. Thank you. Thank you. All right, the next speaker is Matthew Butchies. Is that just a written comment or is Matthew here? I have a letter from him as well.
Sorry, Chairman, yeah, it was just a brief statement and a question which we referred to the TB.
So is Matthew here?
He is not,
All right, so that will be entered into the record?
yes.
Okay, so Christopher? Rife? I got it.
Yes. You definitely got it because you know everyone across the other side will say, uh-oh, he's going to cause grief. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. No, you guys have been asking where I was, but the same time your meeting is on, it's also the same time Transit Riders Council meets. And as an executive member, I have to be there. One thing I like to appreciate one thing. I'm glad we're working on something in Queens with the N&W trains, but we do need to remind that Astoria Ditmas is not ADA accessible. Astoria Boulevard has 2 elevators to the street and additional elevators to the platform. So if we got to work on Ditmas Station, which is the last stop of the N&W, we need to make sure that station is truly ADA accessible. Let's work with MTA and the DOT downstairs so we can make sure that transferring to that whatever vehicle we have there that's electric to the airport. I definitely agree that getting off Astoria Boulevard Station, it's severely hard, but there are elevators there because now we have 2 elevators to the street level. The other thing I just want to remind that as we are getting ready to switch again to the Omni Reduced fare, we need to continue working on that for the PATH trains and all port authorities because as Omni has the full card, but if a person has a disability who's in a wheelchair, walker, or is a veteran, or low-income family, could have the right to get on half fare. Since New York City has the fair fares, which MTA at this time does not handle that, but that is the HRA, we do need to use as an optional. as you see, as Ms. Greif was here last time, brought these up. And I'm going to bring these up as well. The reduced fare does give the chance with a reduced fare Omni card or the app. Something to help out the seniors or people with disability. Because remember, not every disability can hold a card in their hand. They have to use a mobile device. Since technology is upgrading, we need to upgrade. And anything we do with accessibility and anywhere we go, we need to hear that. As we celebrate the American Disability Act, ADA 33 next month, which is the Disability Pride, we need to remember what things we did accomplish for people with disabilities. The federal regulation always says celebrate the ADA procedure in July, from July 1st to July 31st. 12th of July is one. But July 26th is where our former president, the father, George Bush, and I might say his name wrong, did sign that into law 33 years ago on July 26th. Thank you, everyone, and happy 4th of July.
Thank you, Christopher. And Christopher, you should know that we were made aware last month that you were at the meeting, and Deborah brought in those pamphlets as you requested for her, just so you know. And we're vouching she did bring them to the meeting.
And just for the record,
Yes, Deborah?
MTA Accessibility did want to make sure I send that to you guys.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Deborah? We got you covered, Deborah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm Deborah Greif. Yes, I am his mother. Very proud of it. And yes, by the way, if you ever go on the MTA website and you see the Omni video, yeah, I'm Omni woman, but my hair was blonde then. I made a bet with someone that they challenged me. I wouldn't dye my hair purple. They lost the bet. I'm winning. I'm going to enjoy that extra little cash for gifts for me. Okay, I'm very happy to hear that you're making great improvements into Kennedy Airport. I remember when it was Idlewild. Yes, I aged me. That's okay. But one thing, I'm always disappointed every month. Can you please tell us when you're reconstructing what is going to be accessibility for me or the Lady of the Apprentice? I'd like to know at Kennedy as well as LaGuardia, and I'll say even Newark, because they have their forms of accessory. I want to know where the bus stops or that accessory can drop me off safely. Very important, believe me. I've been almost hit by cars like this much because he couldn't get me off safely. So I'd like to know, I'm not asking you to answer this now, because I understand the rules of a public session. But I'd like you in the future to say, we're fixing Terminal B, and we're going to have 2 or 3 special accessoride stops, or the special vans that bring people in who have disabilities, because trust me, a lot of people with disabilities have money, and they want to come and travel in New York. And when they come in and they don't know where everything is, it's very frustrating. It's also important that now you're going to be fixing Kennedy. Please make more accessoride stops at the different terminals. Because when I want to go somewhere, as I'm telling you, I want to make sure that because New York's MTA accessoride will work with you. It's really important. And please try to do this also for New Jersey, for any airports you cover. And that includes also because now when I go into the Port Authority in Manhattan, they let me know what everything is. So what I'm asking is start advertising every type of accessible features you have and what you're going to try to do to improve. Also, if I need assistance to get to the airplane, please have great signage. I would appreciate that. So would other people. And please do that in honor of the American Disabilities Act of 33 years. Thank you.
Thank you. I ask our corporate secretary, other than the one letter that we've had submitted, are there any other written statements from the public?
There are no others.
And there's no other folks who have signed up for public comment here today?
That's correct.
Okay. We'll now proceed with the voting on the items. Each of the respective committee members, the chairs, will provide a brief report prior to each of the matters being considered today. As chair of the Committee on Operations, I'll now present 2 items before the committee's purview. The first item authorizes the Port Authority's continued participation as a member of Transcom, a not-for-profit coalition of regional transportation operators, which includes Port Authority membership on Transcom Board of Trustees for a 2-year period for continued access to Transcom's systems which support regional mobility. Prior to making a motion, I ask the corporate secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Any questions or comments from the commissioners? May I have a roll call, motion, please? Second. Gary's a second. Roll call, please.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Ballwage? Yes. Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, the item has now been approved. The next item authorizes Path's continued participation as a member of Transcom. Sorry, just went over that one, right?
No,
No, it's
there's a separate one for Pat.
Right. The Path is a member of Transcom, which includes Path's membership for a 2-year period. Prior to making a motion, I ask for any recusals.
There are no recusals.
Any questions or comments? Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Second by the Vice Chair. Roll call.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Ballwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe? Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
Well, the votes are in order. This item has been approved. We'll now have the Vice Chair Linford provide his report on behalf of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management. Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As Chair of the Committee on Capital Planning, Execution, and Asset Management, I will now report on 3 items under the committee's purview. The first item, which was discussed in committee earlier today, authorizes $30 million for planning for a future program to enhance mass transit access to LaGuardia Airport. Prior to making a motion on this item, I asked the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no commissioner recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? I now request a motion.
So moved.
May I have a second? Thank you. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on the item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Ballwage? Yes. Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly? Yes. Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved. The second item authorizes $65 million for additional planning and engineering to support the Port Authority's bus terminal replacement program. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? I now request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on the item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Ballwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved. The third and last item would reauthorize a project in order to replace additional path rail track infrastructure that suffered latent damage as a result of Superstorm Sandy at a total cost of $87.7 million. This reflects a $20 million increase, of which 90% would be funded by Federal Transit Administration grant. Prior to making a motion on this item, I ask the Corporate Secretary to note any commissioner recusals.
There are no recusals.
Thank you. Do any commissioners have questions or comments on this item? Hearing none, I request a motion on this item.
So moved.
Thank you. I now request the Corporate Secretary to call the roll for voting on the item.
Chairman O'Toole?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Linford?
Yes.
Commissioner Ballwage?
Yes.
Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Eve?
Yes.
Commissioner Helmy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly?
Yes.
Commissioner LaBarbera?
Yes.
Commissioner McCabe?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rosado?
Yes.
As the votes are in order, this item is approved, and I turn it back to our Chairman O'Toole.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Next, Commissioner McCabe, as Chair of the Audit Committee, will provide his report on the item before the board for our consideration.
Thank you, Chairman. As Chair of the Audit Committee, I wish to recommend a resolution authorizing the retention of the agency's independent auditors for 2023. This will be a vote of the Audit Committee members only. By way of background, KPMG LLP was retained in 2019 as independent auditors on the basis of a competitive solicitation selection process. The retentions provided that, subject to annual retention as determined by the Audit Committee, such services may be extended through 2025. The committee, consistent with its responsibilities under the bylaws and its committee charter, and after due review of KPMG's qualifications and performance to date, have determined to retain KPMG as independent auditors for the audit for the year ending December 31, 2023. I also wish to note that for the 2023 audit engagement, certain non-financial statement-based services, including contractually required audit services, will continue to be provided by Mitchell Titus, a Port Authority certified minority and women-owned business enterprise, in furtherance of agency MWBE goals. Prior to making a motion on this item, I would ask that the corporate secretary to note any committee members' recusals on this matter.
There are none.
Do any commissioners have comments? Hearing none, I now request a motion from a committee member who is not recused on this item.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
I now request the corporate secretary to call the roll of the committee members present for voting on this item.
Commissioner McCabe,
Yes.
Commissioner Bollwage,
Yes.
Commissioner Eve.
Yes.
As the votes are in order, the item is approved. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you very much. No further business. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
Here a second.
So moved.
All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Meeting's now adjourned. We'll see everybody in July.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Test, test. Good afternoon, everyone. We have no one in person. Everyone is remote today. We will start with Larry Higgs from New Jersey Advanced Media. Larry?
Thanks. Two questions. First one is regarding the Bayonne Bridge. If any decision has been made about installing suicide prevention measures on the road side of the bridge. The second question is about PATH and what's the status of rolling out the OmniCard on PATH, and can some of the suggestions that were made by the audience member be included in that rollout?
Well, Larry, we are going to have very significant announcements about the rollout next month, and I guess what I would say is stay tuned.
Let me just add to that, Larry. The commissioners and senior staff have been recently briefed on really exciting rollout with PATH. We're really enthusiastic about this, and it's going to be, I think, a really interesting, dynamic, added value. It's going to make it much more simpler for our riders, but you'll hear more of that next month. First question on Bayonne, in terms of the engineering.
Well, we're still looking at that, Larry, so there's really nothing new to say now, but we're taking the issue very seriously, but really don't have anything to announce right now.
Next question is Colleen Wilson with the Record. Colleen?
Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to know a little bit more about the contract that was approved for the Port Authority bus terminal. How is WSP working with or in addition to the work being done by Foster and Epstein group that's doing the overview of the rehab and the reconstruction? Sorry.
Well, this is a enormous endeavor. So the answer is that there are multiple firms working with the Port Authority on the planning and the preliminary engineering, advanced engineering, as well as preparation of the environmental impact statement. So, and there's no change. What happened today was that the board, this is a complicated project. There have been other funds provided in the run-up, and what happened today was that the Port Board approved additional planning and funding, which will keep everybody at work. And in terms of WSP was one of the early consultants hired to work on the planning, on the preparation of the environmental review. Foster and Epstein were hired to contribute, and they have made very significant contributions in terms of the architecture of the bus terminal. We have very high aspirations. We want it to be both an architectural gem, and we also want it to be highly functional in terms of capacity to handle the buses. We're looking to make it a facility which will be oriented toward electric buses. We want it to be net zero. So all of these consultants and planners and architects are working together under the leadership of the major capital projects led by Steve Plate, and they're all working well together, and this point is to keep that work going as fast as possible. And this is additional funding. There's no change in terms of the individuals who are working on the project.
And Rick,
And when can we expect a update on the work that they're doing?
Well, the work that they're doing is all the work that needs to go into the planning, the design, the architectural aspects of it, the preparation of an environmental impact statement on a project of this magnitude is just very, very high. So they're simply doing all the work that's needed in order to move this project forward.
Next question is Pat McGeehan, the New York Times. I believe we have Pat on the phone. Pat, a reminder, *6 unmutes.
Hi. So my question is about the strike that was planned for today at LaGuardia by the workers for Swissport and their complaints, both here and elsewhere. They've got complaints about the way that Swissport is treating its workers, and I'm wondering if the Port Authority has taken any action, gotten involved in any way, talked to Swissport about these complaints.
I have not received, I don't think any of the senior leadership has talked to Swissport or gotten involved in this. In general, the labor relations of contractors and consultants on the airport are required to abide by Port Authority rules, but the elements of an employee-employer aspects are between the employer and the employee. Given the fact that there was an action at the airport, we will look into it from the point of view of whether everyone is respecting Port Authority policies. The most obvious one is we have the highest minimum wage requirements on the airports, or at least one of the highest in the country, and we will obviously look into whether that is being respected or whether there are other aspects of the Port Authority rules and regulations that are involved in this. But at this point, I don't know the details of the dispute. They didn't raise them, as I say, with me, but we will look into it, Pat.
Yeah, Pat, so we just came out of our monthly meeting, and I just heard about this literally 5 minutes ago. And obviously we'll investigate, and if there's any role for the Port Authority, we'll report back out to the press.
Thanks. Are you expecting it to have any effect on passengers, on your customers at the airport?
The reports that we've had from aviation and from the airport is that there's been no impact to operations whatsoever.
Next question is Michael Aronson with the Daily News. Michael, reminder, *6 unmutes if you're on the phone.
Gentlemen, did that work?
Yes, it did.
Okay. Thank you. This is a straightforward thing for Mr. O'Toole. Your term as a commissioner ends in 8 days on the 30th. Are you seeking to be reappointed to another 6-year term, or are you going to just continue as a holdover like with Mr. Linford? Do you want another term as commissioner? Have you had any conversations with the Murphy administration? Just, what can the public expect when your term expires, if anything?
Michael, thank you for that. And now we have the full attention of all the Port Authority employees who are staring at me right this minute. So, Michael, I will tell you, when I took the 6 years ago, if you can believe it, I never anticipated going beyond a 6-year term. Frankly, have really enjoyed the time here. I haven't decided whether I'm going to seek another 6-year, but I will tell you it's my intention to be here for a few more years in a holdover. Have had some really significant conversations with Governor Murphy and his folks. Really enjoy the work and looking forward to continuing working with Rick and the vice chair. And I foresee a few more years left as I'm heading towards 60. I'm saying I got a couple more left in me.
Thank you.
Next question is Lorena Mangelli with Newsday.
Hi, thank you. I just had a question about the bus options in Queens, going to LaGuardia Airport with this additional funding that was approved. What's next?
Well,
Hello?
yes, no, the Port Authority prepared a 450-page report on all 14 options. It included these two. The expert panel recommended that we pursue those two. There were timeframes in the report with respect to estimated timetable or time that it would take to implement them. We intend to meet that timetable. And so what's next is moving forward on each step of the process in terms of taking projects like this and moving them from planning, moving them through whatever environmental review process is required, and then moving to implementation. And that's what we intend to do with both of the bus routes. They are described in detail in the report, and as I say, there's a timetable associated with each one.
Thank you.
Last question, Steve Nesson with WNYC. Steve.
Hey there. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the bus question, I guess I'm curious. We heard from folks today, and I see on the MTA's website itself that Astoria Ditmars is not an accessible station, and it's not even on the list of stations with plans to be made accessible. So my first question is, what are you going to do about that? Are you going to press the MTA to make it an accessible station? And second question is, what exactly are you going to use the $30 million for that was just approved today?
Well, we will certainly address the accessibility station. I think to be a viable and effective public transit option to the airport, it has to be accessible. So that will be part of the planning. And what the money goes for is precisely what it says, which is planning. It means we bring in consultants with expertise in particular areas. And move the project forward in terms of design, in terms of preliminary engineering, scope it out, and then include a cost estimate comes along with that, and a plan of with a timeline in terms of what happens when. So that money will be used to move the project forward.
Right. That concludes the gaggle. Thank you very much, everyone.